good news though, actually. Barcelona has a
In the
unique
Spanish
has a unique plan of dealing with tourists that are increasing the impacts of climate change in Barcelona. And I'm really curious to know what it is because I haven't watched this yet.
city of Barcelona, thousands of protesters took to the streets last year, angry at the impact of millions of tourists on the lives of the people who live there. But as the city also battles rising temperatures, Barcelona's mayor has turned those tourist numbers to the city's advantage in its fight against global warming. Haley Yacht went to Barcelona to find out more.
Barcelona is one of the most visited cities in Europe, but some locals would prefer tourists stayed home. Like, they'd really prefer it. That's because for many of the city's 1.6
Sentient Jew slave, everyone around the world is getting absolutely sick of tourists because of how the tourists are behaving, because they're incentivized to behave in this way, because they lack empathy for other people. It's all tied together. The behavior of the average human being on this planet now is directly influenced in the same exact ways as the right wing in America. It's just to a lesser degree, and it's more impactful when it comes to interpersonal social dynamics. Anti-tourist in general, look, tourism, it can be good. It's just how it's done, where it's applied to, what are the standards, what does the country or the city that is receiving the tourists do to A, clean up, A, keep it safe, keep it stable, protect the environment from these tourists. There are things you could do. It would just require taxing the rich and implementing social programs. Oh yeah, I'd be fine if it's not commercialized, absolutely. But, you know, like, I hate that.
million residents, tourism is seen as the reason for a growing number of problems. Around 31 million tourists visit Barcelona every year and are blamed for a housing shortage, rising prices, and changing neighborhoods.
Jump J, tourism is shitty industry. It raises the cost of living for the locals and only brings them seasonal jobs. If it's done commercially. But there are places where it's not done just commercially. There are, I mean, even really partially. Like Istanbul is a good example. Istanbul has a lot of tourists, but they don't rely solely on tourism. And there are dynamics in that city that prevent tourists from really messing with the environment. There's not really much they can do to do that. You're not driving around this city. You're taking public transport. You're not, there's things that a city can do, a country can do to incentivize growth from tourism rather than siphoning away the wealth using tourism. It destroys local industries, encourages corporations to capitalize on it. True. But what if all of that was nationalized? Then it's just good for your country. It's good for the optical vision of your country from overseas, but it's also good for you because you have to pay less taxes if all of the tourists are coming in and they are paying money to the government, not a private company. Then that is income for the state, which can then reduce your tax burden because they no longer need that much taxes from you because of the new income. And again, they should just tax the rich to do this. But let's see what they're doing in Barcelona.
It's harming the city?
Yeah. This area particularly, I live here for over 20 years. It just, slowly is getting like soulless. Yeah, I would say 50% of the buildings are here just for temporary use, for rentals.
Agnes Rodriguez was born in Barcelona, grew up here, and now organizes protests against tourism, though hers don't feature any water guns.
We have more Starbucks and more Subway and more McDonald's instead of having things that we need, like where to buy a good bread.
As you were saying, Sentient Juice Slave, the corporations capitalize on it. They come in and they put Starbucks in their Subway and their McDonald's, and the regional restaurants that would have existed, the small little coffee shop, they shut down. That's the issue here. You need to prevent that, and you can do that through regulations and legislation.
To buy the meat or the fish.
So it's almost not Barcelona anymore. You've named these international companies.
Exactly, that's it. So that's the problem, that we are selling the city
It's a trade worth making for some locals who work in hospitality and don't think all tourism is bad, like Elizabeth.
If it was like interesting, cultural, artistic, and this kind of clients, that would be much better for everybody. But people who comes only for party, drink, and just not taking care of the city, that is the
I agree. First of all, be a fucking human being. If you're going and visiting a city you don't live in, don't litter, don't make this city have to deal with you being an asshole. You are a guest in that city like you would be a guest in somebody's house. Behave in an appropriate fashion. If you wouldn't do it in a stranger's house, don't do it in a city that you've never been to. B, I agree that there could be good tourism. It just needs to be decommodified. It's worse than you think. There's actually corporations specifically made to fake local art at these places and sell it. I mean, that's just disgusting capitalism. That's the thing. All of these, though, could be limited, could be regulated, sentient Jew slave, and I think that would be the better way to go. Tourism is good for multiculturalism. It's good for having the narrative, being able to empathize with people on the other side of the world. It's not good at the moment because of the systems that are implemented that use tourism to exploit the population as well as the tourists.
problem.
But Barcelona also has another problem. Along with much of southern Europe, this tourism hotspot has gotten really hot. The city's become warmer and drier in recent years, with increasingly intense and dangerous heat waves and droughts. Rising temperatures have become a problem in schools, where students like sixth graders Mia and Teo struggle to learn in the heat. Can you concentrate when it's hot?
Not really, because I have to be like this, or like with a notebook.
Girl,
I have to be like this,
I'm right
and
in
it's
the
very
same
hot.
boat right now.
Sometimes when you're like in the class and you just came out playing football, it's very hot.
Does it make it hard to then concentrate on school?
Sometimes.
Until recently,
I'm curious how they're going to tie in, like, how tourism is affecting climate change in Barcelona and what they're doing about it, but
their school, alongside many others, didn't have air conditioning or the money to pay for it.
Jesus.
But then City Hall had an idea.
The tourist tax is what the tourists that visit our city pay when they are in a hotel or in a touristic apartment.
Get tourists to foot the bill. Leah Bonet is Barcelona's deputy mayor.
That's a good, system right there. I mean, again, same things that we've already covered, the decommodification of touristic areas, regulations through the state that prevent people from coming in, and the corporations from coming in and setting up their own multi-international corporations and driving out local business, prevent that, but also a tax on tourists when they pay for something in a hotel, in a touristic area, a heavily populated, heavily trafficked tourist location, a museum, or whatever it may be, is an excellent idea. Oh, thank you for the raid, Nina. I really appreciate that. Imagine if all the money gained from tourism went to welfare. Exactly. And that's why, like, the idea of using the tourist tax that they now implement in Barcelona and using that to pay for air conditioning in schools, 10 out of 10.
The possibility of using these revenues, the tourism tax,
And yes, welcome
for
Raiders.
such a project is very important, so that we can accept the tourism in our city and the role that tourism has.
Barcelona City Hall has launched a program to install energy-efficient heat pumps and solar panels in all of the city's 170 public schools. The aim is to provide air conditioning while also decarbonizing. Over the next 6 years, the city's investing 100 million euros in the project, all, it says, raised from the tourist tax.
I think it's the best.
That's a good solution. Again, I still think that they can do more. They can do more to regulate against corporations, multinational corporations, from coming in, setting up shop, and driving out local businesses. But yeah, this is based. You're a tourist, you go to Barcelona, you have to pay a little bit of a tax when you go to the hotel, whatever you're paying at the hotel. You go to a museum, you pay a tourist tax. All that money, welfare programs. 10 out of 10.
Best way to link tourism to a necessary fight against climate change.
Would the city be able to fund programs like this without the tourism tax?
This costs a lot. So this is a very important
It was
help.
billions of dollars
really
to get air
makes a
conditioning in
difference.
these schools.
Exactly. It
Almost
makes
none of
the
them had air conditioning.
Difference.
But anti-tourism activist Agnes says City Hall is missing the point.
The government should be doing it without depending on tourism. It's public health.
As Barcelona faces a warming climate,
Okay, I understand the argument that she had there. The government should be doing this instead of relying on tourism. It's public health. But you have to take consideration into what your economy is based off of. People go to Barcelona as tourists all the time. Banning the tourists is not going to give you more money to be able to implement systems of adding air conditioning to all the public schools, of adding solar panels to all of the public schools and all the roofing of government buildings. You need that money to come from somewhere. And if one of your major industries, which is at the moment a major problem, can be modified to help fix at least part of that problem, that's a good step. This is like, it's not perfect, so it's not good enough kind of whining, and I dislike that.
Doing it without depending on tourism. It's public health.
as Barcelona faces a warming climate, she says residents should be at the center of the fight.
What happens if
What's the substance, Oxpecker?
Barcelona continues on the trajectory it's on? What happens if nothing changes?
We will keep on demonstrating because that has to change. We're not a theme park. We're not Disney World.
For CBS Saturday Morning, Haley Ott, Barcelona.
Lord Fluffy, I never think that America was the shining city on the hill in any point in time. Maybe we were close during FDR, but even then, we were never the shining city on the hill. It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.